Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. So it is week 3 of the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge. How are you doing so far? So I was recently asked if I meal plan. I don't. I basically just pull out a protein and make a meal out of it. If I have chicken one night, the following night I will have beef. I just think what I had the previous night and do a different protein and starch and veg with it and basically make a meal out of it. I don't usually use the cookbook. I only use the cookbook when I'm baking. I don't really use it for meal planning. So, do I meal plan? No. I did it once 4 years ago. Didn't really follow it. I did it for a month. Didn't really follow that plan, but it all works out in the end. It's all delicious. So for tonight's dinner, I'm making a casserole, and this is what I mean. I just pull out a protein and I go with it. So I have some stewed tomatoes here that I want to use up. I have my protein, it's chicken, surprise, surprise. I have some corn that I'm going to put in this dish. I have a cream of chicken soup, and tonight I'm going to use pasta. I've used rice with this before, and I'm doing a half portion because it's going to get cold the rest of the week and I want to do soups. So I usually do this in the bowl, but I'm doing it right in the pan that I'm going to bake it in. And as I said, this is a half portion. I usually do this in a 9 by 13, but I'm going to pour the chicken, juice and all. You want to use all that juice. Don't drain your chicken. That's good broth. You're putting flavor into your dish. Use that broth. So to that, I'm just going to break it up. And I'm going to pretty much put in the rest of my ingredients. It's so simple and easy. You can do this with any variety of meat, any starch you want, any veg you want, and it will come out different every time, tastes good, and it's easy to do. So now I'm just going to put in my cream of chicken soup, and I'm going to mix those two together, kind of incorporate it so it's dispersed throughout. So now that I've got those two mixed together, I'm going to start putting in my spices. Then you can add whatever spices you want. This will change it up as well. I like this. This is from Oldies and it's a no salt. So you will have to add a little bit of salt if you want. And I use garlic and onion pretty much in every savory dish I make. Garlic, onion, and this no salt seasoning is my 3 go-to spices for savory dishes, and you will see them time and time and time again. I do put a pinch of salt, but not very much. So in goes my stewed tomatoes, juice and all. Don't drain them. That's going to help the pasta to cook. You want that juice, that liquid, to help your pasta cook. So now that I got that all incorporated, I'm going to add in my pasta. Now, depending on what size you're making will depend on how much pasta you need. You put in a little, like a cup, and you feel it's not enough, put more in. There's no rules, there's no regulations, there's no recipe to this. Do what makes your heart feel good and what you need for the amount of people you're feeding. So this is an old pasta sauce jar. I keep it in my fridge and I put the water off my canned veg in it, and I will use it up in a day or two of putting it in the fridge. I have kept it up to probably about a week in the fridge with no adverse effects, and I basically use it in gravies, base for chili and soups. Anytime I would use water for something, mashed potatoes, I would use this in replacement of the water because it has nutrients from those veggies that it was steeped in, and it adds back flavor into whatever dish I'm making. So I am going to add the water of the corn into my jar. I may or may not need it for this particular dish, so I'm going to pour it in here and on my counter, as you can see. But I'm going to pour it in here, and if I need it for this dish, I'll put it in. And if not, I will put it in my fridge. So now I'm just going to put my corn in here. I could have used peas and carrots. I could have used just plain carrots. I could have used any number of vegetables that I have available. Broccoli, whatever you want to put in this, that's what you can use. Tonight it was corn, and I'm going to mix this up and see if I need to add any more water into this so that pasta that I did put in already will cook. So here's where people will add just plain water, or they'll mix up a bouillon cube with water. Why not just use the water off your veg? So the water of my corn, I did pour into this particular casserole. Now I will use it all because once I mix the first portion in, I see it's not quite enough to cook that pasta, and I will put the rest of it in. And once I've done that, I'm actually gonna not put any cheese on it at this particular time because I will put cheese on it. But what I'm gonna do is I've added a few more seasonings, and I'm going to cover it with foil, put it in a 350-degree oven for about 45 minutes or until that pasta is soft and cooked. So I tasted the pasta and it is cooked, as you can see. I'm going to put some cheese on the top, and I tried to grate this cheese, but it's kind of crumbly because it's been in the freezer, and I just crumbled it up, and I'm going to put it over the top, put it back in the oven until it's nice and bubbly and brown. So here is the casserole out of the oven. I'm going to let it cool for a few minutes before I serve it. This is a great way to stretch any expensive items like meats. So here it is on the plate. I am serving it with a side of green beans. This casserole is so versatile. You can change it up to whatever way you like to eat things. You can put broccoli in it, you can put beef in it, you can do it with rice, you can do your sides with any number of vegetables that your family likes. It is a great dish to make your own. Old Man Winter has us in his grips, so it is soup season in my house, and what goes great with soup but homemade rolls. So while the bread maker does his thing, I'm going to get started on the soup. So because this week is freezing temps in my neck of the woods, we are at, I think today's high was 17. Tomorrow's low is going to be -1. Definitely soup season. So I'm going to try to make zuppa toscana pantry style. So I have some bacon here. I'm going to use that. And then I have some Italian sausage. So I have those two. Have some potatoes. I don't have any kale, but I do have some Swiss chard, so I'm gonna chop that up really fine and get that in there. I have this table cream. Now I don't have any heavy whipping cream or any regular cream, but still liquid. I'm gonna open it up and see if it's still good. It is quite expired. I would show you the expiration date, but I think I would oppose some people, but I'll do it anyway. Let's see. You saw it already probably in the previous video. So 2017 May, and I have one, I think it was June of 2017 as well, and those are the last two I have. And I have used this before, but not quite this old, so we'll see about that. If not, so I have my dry milk powder that I can whip up. We've been using this for milk since we ran out, and I do have a trick for thickening it. So into my largest Dutch oven, I am putting the drippings off of the bacon in here. Now they were just in the jar and I just put them all in. And I'm going to add my chopped up bacon to this and get that browned up. So now that that's all crispy, I'm adding in my Italian sausage. So to that, I'm going to add in my onions. I'm really proud of these onions this year. These were the biggest onions I grew. Maybe next year or this year, they'll be even bigger. So it goes actually 2 onions because they were kind of on the small side, but big for my standards. So in goes my onion, and I'm going to add my spices. So I'm adding some fresh garlic. This is also from last year's garden. I did really good with the garlic this year. We actually got quite a bit out of the garden. So all the recipes and videos I saw called for chicken broth and water. I am going to be using ham broth because I figured the meat's a ham or pork, so why shouldn't I use ham broth? And that's what I'm using. And I do also use the water from my jar that's in the fridge that I had some veggie water in, and that's what I'm using for the water portion, some of the water portion of this recipe. So I went ahead and mixed up some dry milk powder. I used less water than I would normally, so it is a little bit thicker. So I'm going to open up this table cream and see if it's any good, which I'm probably leaning towards not. And as you can see in 2 seconds, I don't think it is. That doesn't look good at all. I've used this before and it didn't look like this. I smelt it and it smells fine. I don't even think I'm going to taste it. I think I'm just going to let this go and use my dry milk powder that I mixed up. So I just want to show you this table cream once I drained out all the liquid. It's this big lump of, I'm going to say milk fats. Yeah, that's what that is. Okay, so since my table cream is no good and I don't have any heavy cream to go into this, I'm going to have to make do with my dry milk powder. And I'm going to have to thicken it up. So this is my trick to do that. So what I'm going to do to thicken up my dry milk, I'm going to add in some of this mashed potatoes. Now this is survival soup, which is pretty much the same. It's mashed potatoes with some herbs, etc. in it. And I'm going to thicken up my milk that way. So now that I've got my milk thickened up, and it is going to thicken up a little bit more once I add it to the soup, I'm going to just add it into my soup base. Now I'm going to whisk it in, and I haven't added my potatoes or my Swiss chard yet because that's just going to stick in my whisk and I'll add it afterwards. It's already cooked. I'm basically just warming things through at this point in time. So once I get this in, I'm just going to let it simmer for about 10-15 minutes just to let it thicken up a little bit before I add in the potatoes and the Swiss chard. So in goes the Swiss chard that I chopped up. The water from the Swiss chard I did use as part of my water that the recipe called for. And then I'm going to add in my potatoes, which I rinsed. I didn't use the water for these because they were quite starchy. And I probably could have because starch would have thickened them up, but I didn't. But here are the rolls out of the oven. I did put some butter on the top. Nice warm buns to go with my Super Toscana soup knockoff from the pantry. And these are all pantry staples. And I was able to make this soup. Not quite to the recipe, but close enough. And it is delicious on a cold winter day. This is something you need to help stick to your ribs. And I did make enough that this will last us a couple of days through this cold snap. So the last soup was a hit. So tonight I'm going to be making a classic tomato soup. So I have a can of tomato soup, condensed tomato soup here. I have a jar of strained tomatoes, and then I have a jar of my whole can broth. This is bone broth. I'm going to put it all in a pot. I just want enough for tonight's dinner, and this is what it's going to be. Quick and simple. Warm soup always warms everybody's heart. And I've been again reminded recently to look at the ingredients in the Great Value products. Now I had this on the shelf for a while, but going forward I will be paying more attention to that sort of thing. So just looking at the date of this, it's either May or March of 2024. So last year it expired. I hope it's still good. So as you can see, the soup was still good. I did a little chives on the top, and then I did a little play on grilled cheese sandwiches. I found these wraps in the freezer, so get them used up. And this was tonight's dinner. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified when I upload videos. God bless, and remember, stay safe and keep prepping.